My
Nice.
brother is so happy.
Nice intro music.
So that's our intro for today, ladies and gentlemen, and 6 million fans that we have. Can you name that tune? Name that tune. Come
Name
on.
that tune.
Are you asking me, or
Yeah,
are
what of
many
you two
people?
idiots? What?
That Little Rascals, the opening
Yes,
of the
of
He-Man
course.
Woman Haters Club.
Yes,
thought
it is.
because-
It's the Little Rascals.
And we
So
get one little happy Kramer. Oh, is that an Osti?
What's wrong with this picture?
We all know. We already talked about that. But here's the deal. Today is a very special show. Today, I am here not only with my original partner in crime, who's covering his face with a stupid Indian's helmet, and a Kramer who now looks like he's wearing a Chinese woman's golf hat, Adam Schneider, but the man, the myth, the legend, the only guest we've ever had who has his own theme song and video. Watch and listen.
It's your birthday today. It's your birthday today. Rock and roll and celebrate. We lose control and you cut the cake. The night is yours. Destiny awaits. So share toast with your closest mates. It's your birthday today. It's your birthday today.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. Happy birthday.
It is
Nice.
Joe Osti's birthday today, ladies and gentlemen.
He's 29 years old.
Yeah.
Times 10.
Yeah. They just keep coming, man. They come faster every year. Let me tell you guys.
All right.
It is Joe's birthday's 94th birthday today.
But he doesn't look a day over 92.
Well, I'm happy to be on the show. I've listened to, Mike and Adam told me about the show, maybe a few months ago. And, the first month or two, I wasn't able to listen to it because of different things were happening. And so for the last 4 or 5 weeks, I've listened to it, and put some comments in on the 30-second little blurb that you can give. And I really enjoyed it. Last week was really good with David. David did a wonderful job. I know Frankie did a good job. Unfortunately, I didn't hear that one. Kramer, when he was down in fantasy camp, was wonderful. And now you got me. So we'll see how it goes.
It's all downhill from
there. Lucky.
So I will say this. So for today, we have one topic, but as usual, we'll start with hey, how's the Yankees off season going? And we'll start with that conversation. And then we'll go into our topic, which today's topic is seasons ruined by injury. Whether we're going to start with that in seasons ruined by injury, as well as personal stories of us trying to be athletes and getting injured. But first, how about them Yankees? What do we think?
Well, I mean, I don't mind. I don't get the second lefty from the Dodgers. They got Gonzalez, and then they've got what's his name?
Ferguson. Way to go.
Sorry, I knew I remembered. I knew I forgot something in my notes here. I like it because apparently they're both ground ball guys, and the Yankees really seem to like that. They've gone away from the strikeout guys, and they're moving towards these ground ball guys that I think Blake seems to control well, and they seem to like they like them. I don't know about you, but I really would like to have a guy in there that can throw by somebody. I like 3 strikes and you're out. Not all the time. because it does bore me. But in the ninth inning or the eighth inning, you don't get that from you don't really get that from Holmes, and you don't get that from a lot of these guys. So, I'm wondering if that's just is the game moving away from fastballs? I don't see it. Seems like they're getting faster, but the Yankees are getting slower. My thought.
Well, these guys throw in the mid-90s. Joe, what do you think?
Well,
They still got Ramirez. Ramirez is still on the roster. Is he going to start? Is he going to be maybe a sixth starter, or is he going to be in the bullpen? That's another lefty they still have on the roster.
Nick Ramirez,
Nick Ramirez.
He's not going to be on the roster.
Well, right now he's on the roster.
Well, he's on the 40-man, but
he's on the 40.
26. He's not making the 26.
Probably not. Okay.
I mean, I actually had a good conversation with him when they were in Oakland. He was a lot of fun to talk to when I got there early. But he's, and he's not like he's a young guy. He's in his mid-30s, 33, 34, isn't he? So,
but let me look it up here. He's 34. He's a big. I didn't realize he was that big.
He's a big man.
Yeah. He's 235, 34, 6'4". Yeah, out of Anaheim, Cal State.
He's a pretty big guy.
By the way, Joe, you're a big guy. Also, I have to tell you, what are you, about 6'3"?
I was 6'5". I've lost a good inch, maybe an inch and a quarter. I'm, when people ask me now, I say I just got asked that today. I had my last pre-op, so they asked me what my height was. So I told them 6'4". I may not even be that now anymore.
You're not that tall anymore, and you've lost an inch and a half, more than an inch and a half.
Places,
well, in other places, according to what Shower's stories are.
We all family show. Story. Family show. I have to remind him every week.
Well, yeah, Joe and I have had theories about why that shrinks when you get older, but we can't talk about that on the show because it is a family show.
Oh, it's a family show? Okay.
Yes. It just
and no F-bombs, by the way. You're not allowed to say the F-bombs.
Okay. All right. Well, no F-bombs. Yeah, you were talking about having Sturts on here. Yeah, Sturts on here. How are you going to get away from the F-bombs with him?
We're going to call the censor guys and see if they will approve.
You do a 7-second delay and have like a little button type thing.
I'm sure they're going to do that. They'll give us a delay.
Right, this is what we're going to use when Sturts curses.
His quack.
I love a quack.
Anyhow,
good.
We're just so you know, going back to the Yankees. So I did pull some stuff. The Yankees led the majors in ground ball rate out of their bullpen at about 50%. One stat group, StatCast, I think, has them at 50.6, and Fangraphs has them at 49.1. So they led the league in that. They also, as a team, all teams in baseball led the league in most ground ball outs. So that includes starters
and with an improved infield. You've got to think they're going to be even better this year if they get Rizzo back full time, and so they're going to be better. So that's what they have to be thinking. They must really like their infield. I don't like Torres at second. I don't think that he makes a lot of the easy plays. I think he makes a lot of great plays, but I don't like. I wonder why they like him so much there. But
well, there's more of a concentration issue there. It gets a little lackadaisical, and then there's a little bit of a hot dog. Not as bad as Cano. Cano did the same thing too, and he was a really good ball player. But
that's why a better ball player. Cano was better than Torres.
I just don't remember Cano making errors. I remember him making it close, but he would always his talent was so great that he was able to overcome a lot of it. So, he was. Yeah,
and that's one of the things they wrote in this article is despite the fact that the Yankees have Gleyber Torres, who is not known for his, I think it was he was in the bottom 10 of second basemen who qualified as far as range. But the other thing about the Yankees is you got guys like Ian Hamilton, like going back to Adam's point of guys don't strike guys out. Ian Hamilton had a 55% ground ball rate, and Loizaga was at 54.7.
Yeah, and injury prone. So with him, that they're counting. I got to tell you, in that bullpen, it may be Loizaga. He may be the most important. I mean, we all think Holmes is because what happens. Holmes just forgets how to throw for a month every year.
The problem with Loizaga is health. I mean, I don't know. I don't think he had more than 28 innings last year.
Yeah, no, last year it was health, and
Yeah.
but he also can't close. He's got the best stuff, and he can't close.
He does, yeah, he doesn't have disposition for that.
It's
Canley too. I thought Canley would be there. Canley's a ground ball pitcher as well.
Yes, he is.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that's one of the reasons why they started with Zach Britton when they brought him
Yep.
over from Baltimore. He was a heavy, heavy sinker type guy or split finger, and they pounded the ball into the ground, and he was good for the first 2 years, and then he had, his arm issues, and
this Achilles
then he was
issue.
done. Yeah.
So even the Yankees back end of the bullpen may not even make the roster, guys. Matt Crook for his career is 60% ground ball rate in the minors. And
How about Marinaccio?
And Yuri De Los Santos, who's a non-roster invitee from the Pirates, has a 52% ground ball rate at AAA. So, I mean, even the back end borderline guys that are going to go up and down for the Yankees like they do with the bullpen guys are ground ball guys and not strikeout guys.
And they also, interesting, might very well have the best outfield that they've had in a lot of years, especially when
Verdugo's good. Soto, they say, is average.
No,
maybe.
he's not the ticket, but I mean, like he when he DHs, or they could really have a great outfield. So listen, contact guys aren't going to kill you on this team as long as they keep the ball in the park.
Yeah,
and so that's fine. I mean, if they keep the ball in the park, then yeah.
Assuming the Yankees keep Verdugo, Dominguez, and Judge in the outfield, it's going to be a good outfield. And when Soto DHs, you're going to put either Pereira or Grisham out there.
Grisham apparently as good as what's his name was
Bader
in center field. Bader last year. Again, this guy's even better. This guy's
I don't know about that. I think Bader was better. Bader kept winning the Gold Glove. I don't think Grisham has those.
He has two.
Does he? Okay.
Yeah.
So as far as Dominguez goes, I don't see him being in the outfield at all. I mean, coming back from Tommy John, how is he going to throw from outfield? We can get into this later when we get into the injury things, but coming off of Tommy John, look at Bryce Harper. He was a right fielder. He didn't even smell the outfield last year. He came back.
He's not going to smell it this year
and then
either.
He went to first base.
He's playing first base this year. Him and Mookie Betts
are
both infielders now.
Yeah, and he played it last year, but he DH'd first. And if Dominguez comes back and he wants to play, and you're going to put him in DH with Stanton there, if Stanton's going to be there, I mean, there's a big debate about that. But if Stanton is clogging up the DH spot, there's no place for Dominguez to play. I don't see him being in the outfield. I mean, how's he going to throw? Especially if he's going to be in center field. How the hell is he going to throw?
Well, speaking of injuries, I mean, how many games is Stanton going to play? I mean, granted that he slimmed down and is doing yoga, but
he's in the best condition of his life. My favorite. I love this time of year. We've never seen him looking better.
I can't wait till the videos start in 2 weeks when pitchers and catchers report. And we see pictures of Rodon in his best shape of his life, and Cortez, and they're both still shaped like me, circle. So,
and then they look great in spring training for about a week, and then that first injury, and it's like, guys, I don't care how great condition you are in March or February. I'm real happy that February 1st you're in the best shape of your life. But how about April 15th? Let's do that. Let's focus on that.
Well, what's funny to me is I try to do a lot of research before our things. That's why I sometimes get bottled up in the numbers when we talk. But I try to do a lot of research on the topic for today. And what I found was a lot of stuff about just general injury information. And overwhelmingly, throughout since 1998, more injuries, games are lost to injury in the first month of the season than there are for any other month in the season.
And I would say last year was particularly bad because of the World Classic. Now, I think the World Classic is a real problem. I really think these guys are not ready, and this hurts them. I think they've got to move that around a little bit, either after the season. I hate to stop it. We're not hockey here, but I wouldn't mind them to have a break, putting these guys out there or canceling the damn thing. I really liked it, but I don't want to lose my closer again, if I'm the Mets, I'm still pissed about
That's
that.
a freak injury. Yeah, but that's a freak injury. That's not a use injury. That's a guy jumping up and down and blowing out his knee.
But he's not going to be jumping around, blowing out his knee.
Yeah, but he would have been jumping up and down and blowing out his knee. That's an accept. That's like saying Judge is going to trip over a piece of cement again.
All right, no, but think about this. He's in a celebratory situation that he's not going to be in until October.
But
he wouldn't have been in that situation. I'm sorry.
I don't necessarily. It's a freak injury. I think that the other thing is that this week there was a lot of talk about baseball, the major league players participating in the Olympics. That would be a break in the season, assuming that the Olympics are not in Australia. The Olympics would have a baseball break the same way that hockey does it, or hockey's going to do it again.
Yeah, but wait a minute. How many players are you going to need for one team? Oh, it's saying internationally.
The Olympics.
Oh, it's not just an American team. Everybody plays with their nationality.
Same as the World Classic. It would be similar to the World Classic. Be more games actually than the World Classic. So I mean, if they're going to participate in the Olympics, and part of the issue is there's more injuries now. That's the other piece of the history that I did when I was doing this. The study that I found was from 1998 to 2015. The average cost per year for Major League Baseball in salaries for players that missed time was $423 million, over $423 million. And over the course of the 17 years of the study, $7.6 billion in salary loss.
And that begs the question, and that's why I'm so glad we have the eminent doctor, Osti, with us today. Joe, you're an orthopedic surgeon, correct?
Well, getting back to why in the first month of spring training or the first month of the season, you see guys going down. The majority of the guys go down. They go down through the season as well, but it's usually not season-ending stuff. You're seeing with the pitchers, like last year, Robbie Ray, who won Cy Young 2 years ago, went down with Tommy John. The first month of the season or in spring training, and Rasmussen with Toronto. Stud pitcher. Unfortunately, I had both of those guys on my fantasy team, and they both went down. So, those two guys I was, particularly careful with drafting, and I drafted them very well, and they both go down. So when you have two stud pitchers go down in the first month, your pitching staff is usually not going to do well for, a fantasy league. And, we're in the same league, so,
Yeah, I mean, that
can be.
was terrible. But why do you think, though? I mean, this begs the question: why are they more injured now, or is there more technology that talks about the injuries or presents them? And is it also about 1 second, Mike? We'll be with you in a sec. But is it also how much is the money doing? How much is it the fact that these guys are making these kinds of salaries that they're being that much more careful? And are the injuries worse than they were in the day, or are they just more expensive to the team?
So I, again, in doing the research for this, I found a research study that was pre-COVID and post-COVID. All right. So the pre-COVID and what they call as an exposure is if there's a player on a roster for a game. So 26 players is 26 exposures, so 52 per game.
Right.
Even if a guy never goes on the field, it's an exposure. So pre-COVID, it was 5.13 injuries per 1,000 exposures.
Mm-hmm.
Post-COVID, the 21 season, it is at mid-season of the 21 season, it was 9.32 per 1,000 exposures. And then for the full season, it went down a little bit to 8.69 for the full season. So there are more injuries. The other half of it is when we're talking about Tommy John surgeries, that same study that I found, the Tommy John surgeries, there were 400 Tommy John surgeries between 98 and 2015. But the reality is 131 of them, about a third of them, were just from 2011 to 2015. Not surprisingly, the number of shoulder injuries went down as the Tommy John surgeries went up, because it used to be guys who have rotate. If you remember when Adam and I were kids, when Joe was in his 60s, it was all rotator cuff injuries in the 70s, right?
Yes.
And then it became Tommy John surgeries. So
Right.
it's rotated from that with regard to pitching. And the question is, are the players pushing the boundaries of physical abilities of the human body?
I'll tell you my theory on it. Lately, you've been hearing a lot about spin rate, and spin rate you're not going to get from the shoulder. You're going to get it from the wrist and the elbow. And the wrist is a pretty stable. There's a lot of bones locked in there, and you're not going to get it. But the spin rate, whether it be a slider, a fastball, four seam, two seam, you want to go both different ways. And then you got even a split finger. Even though split finger is more like a fastball, straight fastball, they still want to get spin on the ball. You want to get the downward spin on a split finger. Fastball goes right and left, and obviously slider goes curveball goes down, and the slider goes to the right or left, depending upon which arm is coming out of. So I think that's why the elbow is more susceptible because of the spin rate. They treat, they have these. Mike, Adam, you probably know more about it than I do. They had these. What do they call it down in Tampa? They call it the garage. There, where they have the cameras there, right? Is that what it's called? And they have the high speed cameras where they are able to lock in the not only the velocity but the spin rate on the ball. And these guys
Yeah.
are all trying to put extra spin on the ball, and they rank them. And these guys want to have the most amount of spin. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of the guys like Cole, they were, using pine tar and, stick them and all that other stuff on the ball to get a better grip so they get more spin on the ball. So I think that's one of the reasons. Also velocity, but velocity can also affect the shoulder.
Got
And
it.
velocity, they're all trying to throw close to 100 or 100. So, why the shoulder? Maybe they're doing more exercise. You can build up the rotator cuff, all the muscles around the rotator cuff. There really aren't that many muscles around the elbow. It's mostly ligament based. So if you're going to ask me, between the two joints, you know, uh, shoulder injuries are more detrimental long term to a ball player because there's so many different factors that can go bad. You can have a labrum injury, you have a capsule injury, you can have the cuff that goes bad. There's so many different things. Mike, you actually had surgery on the
I had
shoulder, so you
labrum.
know a little bit more about that than I do. But the elbow is certainly susceptible. To these guys with the velocity and also the spin rate. And I haven't heard anybody talk about the spin rate affecting the elbow.
Do you think
Just
that they
now.
know elbows more now? I mean, is that the key to or is the shoulder still something of a mystery? Can they fix them? Even though, because you said there's a lot of problems that can happen there, but are they able to fix them as easily as they seem to be able to fix elbows these days? I mean, do you think that's
Well, yeah. I mean, it's basically the ulnar collateral ligament, which is, the ligament, right on the inside of the elbow right here. I mean, and then you got one other ligament on the outside, the lateral collateral ligament. It's very much like a knee. Basically your elbow is only supposed to go this way, up and
yeah,
down. But when you throw a ball, and you have torque. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing
yeah,
here.
yeah,
When you bend, you're bending your wrist. Yeah, you can get spin from your wrist, and that can move pretty well. But the elbow doesn't really doesn't move that much. So the ligaments are the only thing, and the bones the only thing holding on. Look at King. 2 years ago, he had so much spin, he broke his freaking
he
ulnar.
broke
He
his
broke
elbow.
the tip of his. He broke this bone right off.
Yeah, can't remember
And
when
I
that
think we
happened.
all
That
met
was
him down in
scary and
Tampa.
painful. Yeah.
Last year, 2 years ago. Yeah.
So yeah, I had the labrum tear, and I had the type of labrum tear where those hats where the hair comes up for the bald guys and it looks like it's frayed. That's my type of labrum tear because there's like 4 types of tears. And what's funny is the outside of the elbow that you were talking about. I had that surgery as well, same arm. And I think that the difference with the pitchers is with the relievers, they know they're only going to pitch an inning and they go all out 100% every pitch. And then with the starters, because they know they only have to go 5 innings these days to make $25 million, they're not pacing themselves. I mean, I'm sure guys like Catfish Hunter and all these guys that threw 30 complete games in the season, they were pacing themselves. Especially, let's say Catfish Hunter and Jim Palmer. And Greg Maddux, for that matter. They were guys Yeah, they might have given up more home runs than the average Bear, but they were painting corners.
Mm.
And they were so good at painting the ball that they were not needing to throw 100% because the ball was going exactly where they wanted every time. And that was the key for them. Now these guys throw it as hard as they can, as long as they can, even if they're starters, and that's the end of that. We have a special message that I have to
We
play.
do. I want to play some of these. Let's go.
Happy birthday, Grandpa.
That's my
Happy
granddaughter.
birthday, Grandpa.
Oh my God, that's be Josie. My little
That
one. That's my
is your
youngest. I think
granddaughter.
that's my youngest. That's my youngest granddaughter. Yeah.
It's Brittany. Brittany put it in under her ID.
Oh,
So
Okay.
Brittany.
that
Thank
was
you.
good. I had to play that one.
What a babe. All
And
right, let's go.
this guy doesn't even know Osti, does he?
Happy birthday. I love your podcast.
Who's Sean B? Do you
That
know
must
Sean
be.
B?
That must be my. Is that Brittany?
It says Sean B. I don't know who Sean B is.
Yeah. Yeah. Sean is my son-in-law. He's the one that's coming down when I have my surgery. Sean's gonna be, taking care of me for a good week, maybe a little bit more than a week. So, he's a
See,
great guy.
so you see your son-in-law is coming to take care of you
But
when you have your
yeah, I mean,
thing.
he's a great
So
son-in-law.
my
Yeah,
mother
I
is
mean,
my mother's
he's
having
coming to help me. Yeah.
my mother's having knee replacement and my wife is going. So it's the in-laws that take care of
Okay.
these people. So notice it's not your own kids that take care of you, but it's the in-law kids.
Yeah, well,
that
the
are
kids
taking
are
care
all,
of
it turns out, Sean's a teacher and he's up in New York. Well, they live in New Jersey, but Sean is, teaching at the Staten Island High School in Staten Island, Tottenville High School. And, so he has that week off for spring break. So, it turned out great that the timing I was able to pick the timing. I can't wait. This freaking hip is just on fire. But, another week and then have it fixed. And he's going to be down here for, a week and a couple of days. And, I mean, he's a good guy. We get along great. We always have. So I'm looking
Here's
forward to that.
here's
Hopefully
another
he is.
message.
I
Here's
don't know.
another message.
He's going to
Here's
deal with
another
me.
message.
This is Dr. Ezra von Mermelschwanz. Yes, I am also a doctor. I want to welcome another member of the medical profession, Dr. Joe Osti, to the show. It's great when an FOS or a friend of the show makes the leap over to enter the studio, so we call it over here in the podcast biz. Have a great birthday, Dr. Osti, and have a great show.
You have any idea who that is, Joe?
No.
Adam?
Ezra von Mermelschwanz. He's a doctor. He recently got his medical degree from the Dr. Vinnie Boombat School of Medicine in Boca Raton, Florida. And we're very happy that he's a very, very loving member of our show. We've all met him, but this is nice. I think it's great that
Ezra calls into our show. I will say he does like to wear Yankee Fantasy Camp pullovers and Yankee hats with Kramer bobbleheads in front of him. And but he also calls into the Highlights from All Life show, which is Wednesday nights at 7 Pacific on the Mic'd Up app, where we appear as well. For those of you listening in, as a couple of you have done, all you got to do to leave us a message, you'll have 30 seconds, is hit the microphone on the bottom.
And
it'll start
feel
the
free,
clock like it does on Snapchat or Snap Quiz or Snapbook or whatever it's called. And you'll have 30 seconds to leave us a message.
and do it again.
Birthday
You
message.
can do it multiple times. If you have a lot to say it. Go ahead.
As the Highlights from Low Life's guys like to remind Adam and I, who are constantly calling into their show, leave multiple messages, even if you're not responding to the right question.
We never did it.
You have to, because that 30 seconds goes by real fast. If you have anything
real
to
fast.
say.
When you see that clock tick, and then it cuts you off by 28 seconds.
Yeah. So the Highlights from Low Life's guys and us have a little rivalry going, because Adam and I call into their shows all the time. And last week they asked the question, what are your favorite in arena and in stadium public address and use of the speaker system? And I went very negative on my answers instead of the favorites.
Me too.
I gave my worst. And Adam went with a good one, but then he caveated it into a bad one. So they abused us a little bit. But then again, they're low lifes. And that's just complimenting them, because they're not even low lifes. They're below low lifes. But they have a great show on Wednesday nights
Lower
at 7
lives.
on the Mic'd Up app. As does Rick Barry has a show. And
These
there's a
plugs.
couple other shows that are
When
out
do we
there.
get paid for this? I want to get paid for these plugs.
Well, these 6 million people are going incognito, and they're not showing up every time. So we got another message right here.
To a great guy and a very, very good friend. All the best, Joe. Happy birthday.
Frankie. I know who that is.
Another FOS. Good old.
Then we
spoke
got two
with
more.
Frankie
We got 2 more.
2 days
We
ago.
got 2 more. Here we go.
I wanted to wish Doc Osti a very happy birthday.
Oh, now you call me a
I
doc.
hope he enjoys his day, and I missed him this year in Tampa. We always had a lot of fun together at the Brick House.
Well, David, I've been hanging with David, and David's been hanging with me for years and years. We've had a lot of, a lot of things that you can share. Going to different places in Tampa, not only being on the ball field, but just being around Tampa. That's why we started going down earlier and earlier every year, to the point where I think we started going
January
down like
1st.
a week and a half before camp. So,
well, you and David are, in the literal sense, you and David are the long and the short of fantasy camp.
True, yeah.
You formerly
like
at
Mutton
6'5",
Jeff.
and
You get along great,
you formerly at 6'5", and David at 4'11". So it works out well.
We've got great photography of the two of them side by side. It's like Joe Osti and his ventriloquist dummy. It's fantastic.
Yeah, if you sat on your lap, it would work that way.
No, don't say that.
Last and certainly not least.
Yeah.
This is the
nice.
K-Dog here, wishing Big Joe Osti a happy birthday and many happy returns. See you guys.
Kramer.
That's the K-Dog.
Yeah, talk to him today too. Yeah.
Yes,
K-Dog is always, on spot, and we talk fantasy baseball, and we talk about fantasy baseball. You guys ever have a question about fantasy baseball? He turned me on to, I'll tell you a quick story about Kramer. Last year, I said, man, my outfield, my infield, I wasn't doing really well, even though I wasn't, the team wasn't doing poorly in the fantasy league. And he says, keep your eye on Ellie De La Cruz. And I looked him up, and I saw that Ellie De La Cruz looked like with Cincinnati was going to be, the shortstop, maybe third baseman as well, with Cincinnati. And I drafted him, put him on the bench in the fantasy league for like 5 or 6 days before he got called up, and he was just lights out. I mean, the guy's a phenomenal ball player. Now he's settled down a little bit in the last month or so, but but Kramer knows not only the ball players, he knows every ball player.
Kramer is a real savant. Like we noticed it here on the show. Like he was boring so many people that we had to kick him off. I'm kidding, Kramer. We love you, but
he knows.
No, Kramer is an icon with
well now
after guys.
He became a star. Going down and doing the fantasy camp show. Yeah. That was a classic. Remembered forever.
He now wants to get paid to come on our show. That's why he hasn't been on our.
We had to say no. We had to say sorry. We had to draw the line. We're not paying people yet. That's maybe for him maybe 10 years away, but we're getting there.
We do owe him 2 dinners. We owe him some dinners though. You and I.
Well, he didn't get Sturts.
Yeah, but he did such a good job. He did well. First of all, he did it right, so he gets 1. And I think since I was the one that put the second dinner on there, I think he did such a good job. He should get that second dinner.
Maybe 1 dinner. Because he did
I'll take the to-go dinner for him because Kramer, he's got to order 2 meals. But we need to have Kramer. Matter of fact, Joe, when we do a fantasy baseball show, which we'll probably do mid-March, we're gonna have Kramer on for that for sure. If not before that.
Yeah.
But we're going to have Kramer on. We'll probably have you on for that one as well. Because you can't have a fantasy baseball show without Kramer.
We cannot. So we're about halfway through.
You guys do such a great job. You remind me of the John Boy show, where, you guys do it, you can actually do it by yourself. But when you bring in like special guests, you bring in Kramer, you have your brother Steve, who I, got close to years ago down at fantasy camp. And I didn't even know that he had some health issues. I'm sorry to hear that, but it seems like he's doing pretty good.
On the man.
And then you had David. That David show last week was excellent. So, now you got me, and, we'll see. We got, about 25 minutes. And if you want to get into some of this,
we'll get into some of this injury stuff.
Health issues, Yankee, unfortunately, you're going to have, if we ever get into it, you're going to hear me lambasting the medical staff.
That's
with
where
the
I
New
wanted
York
to go
Yankees.
next. That's
Well,
where
I
I
mean,
wanted to go next. So we've just so you know, as the non-doctors, although I am a doctor, but not that
That's
kind
true.
of doctor.
JD.
Yes, Adam is as well.
That's right.
So this is full of doctors today. Doctor. We're spies like us. Anyhow,
I play one on TV in my class.
So the thing that we talk about all the time, even without Dr. Osti involved in the conversations, we don't understand. And Met fans could chime in too, because it's just as bad, if not worse, with them. We don't understand the injuries that are taking place with regard to all of this stuff. It's out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And the other guy that likes to talk about it with us is Cavallea. Let's talk about gravelly voice. But Cavallea's son, who was the strength and conditioning guy for a while, and he was a scapegoat for some of the problems.
Oh, absolutely.
But they did not stop. If anything, they've gotten worse. I don't understand these type of injuries they're getting. And, Adam is Adam's favorite. What's your favorite injury that the Yankees get every year, Adam? Do you remember?
The soft tissue pull of the hamstring.
Hamstring, obliques.
No,
oblique.
I'm sorry, the oblique.
The oblique is Adam's favorite injury, and we
oblique.
It makes me nuts.
The fat guys don't have obliques.
They
right.
never.
That's why.
Listen, when I was growing up, and listening to baseball heavily in the '60s and some in the '70s, there was always rib cage injuries. You don't hear about rib cage injuries, so it must be
same?
they had obliques, and they called them. They didn't even know what a freaking oblique was. Was a muscle on the side of your, on your side over here. They called it a rib cage injury. You don't hear anything about rib cage injuries, but back in the day, the hitters would always have rib cage injuries.
Yeah,
but now you don't hear anything about that. It's all obliques, and the obliques can take months to get over.
The problem is, and what worries me isn't the proliferation. Well, of course, I don't like the fact these guys get hurt for their career and for really what it is they're entertainers, and we don't get to see them do what they're the greatest in the world at doing. But what's hard is that it seems that a lot of the time is engineered by management, and that bothers me a lot, because it seems injuries that are like guys like Stanton, how long does it take to get healthy? And you just got to wonder. Then they go down and spend this. Oh, hello. Then they go down, and we had a little incident there. For the many thousands of you who just got offended by Mike's groin, where
especially my wife,
we apologize. But no, I just think you got to wonder if this is something that they're so focused on their investment. And I wonder if getting them on the field even matters anymore. It's like, make sure that they're ready for the playoffs. All you ever hear, it's like getting back a new player. It's like making a trade. The guy's out 5 months. We get him back September 1st, and it's like, oh, we made a big deal. No, we didn't have a player that was already an asset for an incredible amount of time.
I've got somebody here who wants to chime in about how he feels about these injuries.
You have made me very angry indeed.
That would be Marvin the Martian.
Oh, I thought it was the guy from I thought it was Siegfried from Get Smart for a second.
Similar voice. So
Starga. All right. So anyway, that's just my feeling on it, and that bothers me more than anything. The injuries are unfortunate, but have they become more of a problem because the way the teams are managing their time with on the disabled list, and also down on the farm when they're down working out? How long are it makes me crazy that you put these guys down into the down on rehab assignments, and they're blowing it on the field. How many times did somebody get hurt? I think this kind of helped us last year, but we had a couple of guys who would go down and they got hurt down on the farm playing games, and then they were out for 3 more months. It's just kind of crazy.
Well, Adam, you just talked about mismanagement of the club. It comes down to the medical staff. I just read Jamie's.
Well, we're going to play
read what Jamie just said.
Let's play it. Let's play
Jamie. We're going to play Jamie's.
I find
play what Jamie just
said.
Hey,
guys. So an injury that ruined the season, I'd say, was probably when Jeter broke his ankle in the playoffs, 2012, I think. He tried coming back in 2013, but was never able to. And that team always just had given up pretty much. I mean, all things considered, we actually didn't do that bad. But Zoilo Almonte, Jason Nix, that was a terrible team. And, Jeter wasn't able to come back. And Cano was really our only good player.
I like how he used the word "we" as if he was playing on that team, but that's a different story.
Well, let me tell you, I'm glad Jamie brought that up because I forgot all about that. I was really upset the way Jeter was treated. Jeter, remember, he was hurt for maybe 2 months before that playoff. He had suspected bone bruise, and then eventually came out with that he had possibly a stress fracture. Now, stress fracture on MRI, you can actually pick up if you have a good radiologist reading it, especially if it's after 2 weeks that it's occurred, because you have this proliferation of bone around the microfracture or the stress fracture. So what the Yankees did, and a lot of it could have been with Jeter because he always wanted to play, is they injected it with a long-acting, it wasn't lidocaine, I think it was more like Marcaine, which is a longer-acting anesthetic, and they numbed the area. Now, if you have a stress fracture, it's a fracture. It's a microfracture. It's a very small. It's not complete all the way through. It's like a hairline that's an incomplete fracture. It doesn't go all the way through most of the time. And it's generally pretty stable if you immobilize it, and it heals, relatively well. Unfortunately, they numbed the area up so you didn't have any pain. Pain is sometimes a good thing because it keeps you off the offended extremity. And they injected it with an anesthetic, and they sent him out there to play. And of course, it's in the playoffs against Baltimore. I could see that play now where he went down. I knew right away what happened. He broke it, and I had a chance to talk to him actually at one of his functions down in. Actually, it was at the Hard Rock when I was there with Dave, and I think Frankie was there as well, Frankie Cassess. And I had a chance to talk to him about that, and he said, "Yeah, I wanted to play." I asked him briefly about it. Really, a lot of people around, but I asked him very quickly, why did you play? He says, "I wanted to play," and they just kind of numbed it up, and I was able to, keep playing. That is kind of like malpractice, to numb up somebody and and have them go out there, especially a multi-million-dollar ball player.
Hall of Famer.
That's what they did.
Cut me, Nick. Cut me, Nick.
Yeah.
Don't stop the fight. Cut me, Nick.
Yeah. I mean, it really says it about these guys. And, I wonder if there's you got to respect Jeter for that. And I wonder if a lot of these guys would do that. I don't know. Again, I know Giancarlo Stanton is with us tonight watching the show. And so if I offend you, you're a lot bigger than I am. You're a lot bigger than Joe.
He's less skinny. I saw a picture of him. He thinned down quite a bit.
Best shape of his life. We're ready. So, but it just seems to me that a guy like I don't get the fire from certain guys. Like they're going to come back from a bad injury. Jeter, you could see that was his thing. He was a gamer. And respected. But it's funny. There's so many. There are seasons, and I wrote down some. We know what happened this year, losing Judge for 44 games or something. They just wouldn't. What bothered me about the way this season played out was that I kept hearing the Yankees in the news saying, it's hard playing without our guys. It's hard, we're just going to have to make it somehow, but it's really hard not to, we're just going to have to keep the balls in the air while we wait for our guy to come back. What the hell is that? You go out and play and win your job and do better, play better, lift your game. And see what happens. It felt like the Yankees just sort of gave up halfway through the summer when he was hurt, and they played terribly for those 2 months. And really,
well, Adam, you also got to remember that Rizzo had that
concussion,
concussion going
Tell
back
us
to
about
the end
that.
of May. So
how
he
does
played
that
3
happen?
months with a concussion, and he didn't hit squat. I think he hit 1 home run and only a couple of hits. He hit like in the hundreds somewhere.
And how do they miss that,
until
Joe?
September, and they finally found out that he's got a concussion.
How does that happen? Now that to me was malpractice. Now he's saying that he didn't give them any signs.
Yeah.
That he didn't. He really fell on his sword. But I don't believe that. I think that they missed it. They missed.
They wanted him out there because they had nobody to hit. Stanton wasn't hitting. You know, Torres was the only one hitting, and he was hitting 270. And everybody else was, nobody was hitting.
This is why I go back to the fact that I think the Yankees need to deal Torres. I think that's the bat that replaces Torres, is because, you know, he's not going to hit 130 like he did. He's going to hit, and he may not hit 320 like he was hitting before he got the concussion, but, you know, he's going to be hitting in the 240s, and he's going to hit 35 home runs. That's why I think they should deal from strength, and they should have figured out a way to use Torres to get assets, or still could with Miami, but we'll see. So we've got one more comment. It is injury related and season related, not Yankees, but that's okay. This is from a gentleman, and Adam, I don't know if you were playing with us when this happened back out here in California. This guy named Ed Glover, big A's guy. I play golf with him now, and he had to retire from playing in our league because I picked him off second base when I was catching. Now, let me tell you, I picked him off second base, and the rule is it's a force play. So you think about that. He hit a ball over everybody's head. He hit a double. And then I went on the next pitch and picked him off second base while I was catching.
Love it.
So I didn't think it was him. I thought it was somebody else. And then we started playing golf together, and he's the one that told me it was him. But he's a great guy, Ed Glover.
1964 Dodgers were in first place when Sandy Koufax dove into second base and jabbed his elbow. As a result, the Dodgers ended up the season in sixth place, missing out on a chance to have 4 consecutive World Series appearances.
Wow. No, that's terrible.
So Adam, you were one. Adam, you were one at that time. So do you remember that?
I remember it well, and I was just happy because it gave the Yankees an opportunity to play the fabulous Cardinals, who, with Gibson, just kicked the living bejeebus out of us. So yeah, I do remember it very well.
I was in the womb. I was in the womb at that time. So
yeah.
Joe,
you were
71 at that time, Joe? What were
Joe
you,
was about
71 and
32
64?
I watched that in '64. Yeah.
So
I don't know what
thanks for that
what do you
insight,
want
Joe.
I don't know how to comment on that.
Great play-by-play there, Joe. Thank you.
Speaking of guys getting injured, right? Was Chimney Wong? Didn't he get hurt running the bases?
Oh, okay. I have him written down. I have several written down. I got Teixeira, A-Rod, Ching-Ming Wang. We already talked about Rizzo, but Ching-Ming Wang. And I actually happened to be watching that game. He was, he walked or somehow got on first base, and he made it all the way around the third. He came around, and he reached for home plate, and he had a misstep, and he hurt his foot. And it turns out that it was a Lisfranc fracture, Lisfranc fracture, and it wasn't really a fracture; it was a dislocation of his midfoot. That's like right in the middle of your foot. If I only use my hand like my foot, it's like going right through the middle of the foot.
Mm-hmm.
And
wait a second, Joe. Is that like when in Japan they could use the hand like a knife?
Huh?
Is that like in Japan they could use the hand like a knife, like a ginsu?
No.
Sorry.
Stop it. So the Yankees, of course, they wanted to rehab it. Now, I treated several of those type of dislocations in my career, and the only true way to fix it is to stabilize it with. Generally, you put K-wires, which are pins, and now you can put plates on there. That's more invasive, but typically it's a very simple procedure where you actually drill these wires, these pins, through the foot to stabilize that whole joint. There are multiple bones in there, but you have to stabilize each one to the point where the ligaments will actually heal. You don't actually have to go in and physically repair all the ligaments because they're tiny little ligaments.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're approximated, they will heal. And that's the way to treat it. And 6 weeks of immobilization, and then you pull the pins out, and with rehab and everything, maybe a month or two later, everybody's doing well. Unfortunately, they screwed with this kid, and they did the rehab, and he won 2 years in a row, 2 19-game win. And he was on his way to do another season like that, if I'm not mistaken. and they screwed him up big time.
But that
So
was also a compensation matter, wasn't it? That he never was right in his feet, and then he messed up his shoulder because
oh
he
yeah,
tried to
oh well,
overthrow. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It was a
yeah.
really
There's a
upsetting career.
compensation for any kind of injury. You
By the
have
way,
a
the
leg.
surgery that was just made, there will be an exam at the end of the session for those of you who would like to show us
I mean,
how smart you really are.
there's a laundry list. I mean, this is Wong. I mean, he was so good before he
Yeah.
got hurt. There's a laundry list of pitchers. Most of them are arm injuries that put them away,
That's
right?
right.
So I mean, you got guys like Mark Pryor, Matt Harvey.
Mm-hmm.
You could say Noah Syndergaard at that point. Look at Don Gullet, right?
Yeah. Came to the
So
Yankees,
good.
never threw what he throw about 10 innings one year, and he was out in
Yeah. Look
77.
at DeGrom. DeGrom's up there.
DeGrom.
Hopefully.
Mhm.
Yeah.
John Matlack. I mean, you
the
got a bunch of guys, and then you got Strasburg with Strasburg wins the World Series for the Nationals by pitching through whatever he was pitching through, and basically he's never pitched again.
That's right. I take you here to 1974. I'm reading a little section in Roy White's book. We were to play those last two games against the Brewers in Milwaukee. The Brewers were in second, so they had nothing to play for. As we were leaving the Cleveland airport, we had swept the Indians. Our flight was delayed. Some of the players had a couple drinks, yada yada, and turns out that Bobby Mercer at the famous Pfister Hotel, Pfister Towers, Milwaukee, there was a fight between Dempsey and Bill Sudeikis. There's some names. Two backup catchers to Munson. And they were fighting. And of all people, who jumps in but Bobby Mercer? Breaks his thumb and he's out, and the season's over. They end up losing the next day. They get shut out because they're in shock. They lose 3-0, and they finish 2 games behind the Orioles. That's, he writes about it, how that was the first year that he thought the Yankees were going to win. And he said that's the year we thought we had the team, and the Orioles, and they were that close. And that he said it just took it away. He always said if Bobby had been healthy, because he was hot, he was hitting, and he had finally gotten over that Shea Stadium thing, and it didn't really matter. He was just hitting, and that was it. So
and then they traded him.
Then they traded him, but upsetting, because that you can just derail something as important as that just by something as simple as two idiots fighting in a hotel bar.
Yeah.
Well, you also had the Teixeira thing, with the bone bruise. That was, he was for a half a season. They kept saying, "Oh, he's got a bone bruise,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then eventually it turned out to be again a stress fracture of his tibia. And then he was done for the season. It finally comes out. Now, where are these radiologists? And it comes down to the radiologists. And I'm going to get into, if we have time, I want to get into the A-Rod thing with his hip. And because that was criminal what they did to him. But Teixeira, Mark Teixeira, had a kind of like a minor injury. It almost sounded like a bone bruise type thing. But unless you take the right scans and have the right doctors that know how to read MRIs and CT scans, if these radiologists really aren't up to snuff, and you would think if they're reading an X-ray or an MRI or a CT scan, and they're reading it on a multi-million-dollar ball player for a billion-dollar organization, you think they would be looking at every freaking angle. I know I would. I did it for all my patients, but
And at least a second opinion on everything.
if I had Mark Teixeira's CT scans in there, I would spend days looking at the damn things. Just looking at it to find out what was going on, and they didn't find it, and then they finally find it, and then he's out. Okay. Now,
let's hear the A-Rod story before we go. Let's hear the A-Rod story. Hello, A-Rod.
What do you want? I didn't hear you, Mike.
A-Rod. Let's hear the A-Rod story.
Oh, you want to hear A-Rod? Okay. A-Rod. Well, we all know, his issues, what he had. But before he, was suspended for, that 1 year, he had his, I forget which hip. He had the first hip surgery. He had labrum, like you had in your shoulder. There's a very similar cup in the acetabulum, and, where the hip, the ball of the hip, the femur fits into the pelvis. And there's like a ring of cartilage in there, and it's called a labrum, and that gets frayed just like you had, Mike. And very often you have to go in and clean it up, or basically that's it, like what you had done. It looks on a on a not on a
MRI.
scope. It looks like there's like all spaghetti in there. You just kind of clean it up. Anyway, you suck it out and clean it up. Anyway, he had that done and he did reasonably well. Came back, and I'm trying to think if it was the year that he got suspended, but it was the year prior to that, just before suspension. Is he was having problems with his hip, and they kept having him um, play, and they also said that he didn't have any kind of issue with his hip. And it turns out later he had the same issue on the one hip that he had fixed on the other hip. And the doctors never made it public, and the team never made it public. And that's the time when he sued. Maybe he sued Major League Baseball. He sued uh, uh, the Yankees, and he sued the medical staff. He sued Hershon.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
Wow.
personally, because he didn't read the MRI that showed that he actually had that injury. So a lot of times these teams don't let on as to actually what the injuries are, which I don't quite understand because they all pay an exorbitant amount of insurance on these guys, and you'd think they would rather have 60% or 80% of their salary than have this guy go out there and try to contribute and even hurt themselves more.
Right. I mean, and you heard the numbers I talked about: $7 billion over 17 years,
Yeah.
$430 million per year average, which has only gone up since 2015, and it makes no sense to me. And even if I go to the doctor and I'm a major league player, I would think the Players Association should have a team of doctors and experts available as second opinions
That's a good point. I
on
like that.
second opinions on these guys' MRI. Even if the MRI, Dr. Vinny Boombat says, hey, he's fine. Baseball's union should have a situation set up whereby they're going to get a second opinion from somebody that's approved by the union. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. You're talking about, like you said, yes, they have insurance, but they'd rather have the guy out on the field. But the players, their self-interest has to be a little bit about getting that second opinion. So, all right, we're going
That's
to
a very
close it
good.
down.
I never even thought of that, Mike. That makes a
Even
hell
a
of a lot
team,
of
I would
sense.
want. If I was a team, I'd want a second opinion every single time too.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. Whether it's Hershon or Vinny Boombots, I don't care. But if I was a team, even if it came back clean, I would say I want a second opinion. If it said he needed surgery, I'd want a second opinion. If they said, well, it's inconclusive, I'd want a second opinion. So that's the thing that always bothers me when these guys, especially the A-Rod situation, where he was clearly misdiagnosed, enough that he's one of the few guys that actually sued over it. I don't understand how there's not second opinions. Guys are now and you read about it all the time now, the pitchers, for their arms, they're all getting second opinions for their arms. Why aren't these guys getting second opinions for these other injuries that they're getting? But that's a story for another day.
Well,
Adam's
they also don't use their team doctors to do the surgeries. You ever see Hershon do any surgery?
No, but they were all going to Frank Jobe for their Tommy Johns, which makes sense because he was the guy.
Well,
so,
Jobe, yeah. Andrew's
Adam is getting ready for baseball practice, where he will probably see my brother and make sure my brother knows I saved him $100 on his bats yesterday.
Oh, you did. That's right.
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you.
I'm the one that made
Thank
him
you
go
for
do the
sending that
research.
to me, by the way.
What?
Thank you for sending that to me because I now can.
These guys are spending, Joe. They're spending $100 and something on wood bats that are just going to break when you could buy, 3 of them for the price that they're buying one, and you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. So, anyhow, we want to thank our guest today, the birthday boy, Joe Osti.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Come back and visit us again.
Back. Definitely, we're definitely going to be talking injuries, of course, but we'll be talking Yankee baseball a lot. We'll have you on. We'll have you and Frankie on together because, I think Frankie lights up just at the sight of you.
Oh, that would be great.
Frankie and his stories, you can't beat him.
No, yeah, Frankie and his friend that was a COVID hoarder. But I will say this: Joe's got a surgery coming up. He's getting his hip replaced, as he was referring to.
Yeah, I think next Thursday I'll be in the hospital and I'll be in bed. I'll try to, I'll see. Yeah, but more than likely not. But we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. Well, you got some time before our fantasy baseball show in the middle of March. That'll be about a month after.
Good.
That'll be good, and then we'll see how you do. But we expect messages from you anyhow.
Absolutely.
That
All
being
right.
the case,
Well-
I will say, ta-ta for now. Make sure you follow us on the Mic'd Up app and watch our show live every week at
Good
4
show.
or 7.
Thanks, guys.
And
I
YouTube as
enjoyed it.
well. On YouTube.
Lefty
Don't
Joe
forget.
On YouTube, Coast to Coast Baseball on YouTube. And we have a Facebook page. Adam's got a Facebook page. I've got a Facebook page. Post it. Tell your friends. We need to head over that 7 million mark. Take it easy, everybody. See you next
There you
week
go.
on My
All
Three
right.
Sons. Stay out of
Thanks.
trouble, or at least don't get caught.
All right.